what we're going to be doing is looking at the 6 themes of AP World History Modern. And it says think pieces. All right, think pieces. Within the course itself, you can see exactly what the themes are. They are designed to provide clarity as to what you're learning, why you're learning them, and allow you to connect seemingly different ideas within and between the units. So humans and the environment, cultural developments and interactions, governance, economic systems, and social interactions and organization. Think pieces because that's the acronym we'll use to remember it. Politics is the P. That's where governance comes into play. Innovations, technology and innovation. Environment is the first E. That's humans in the environment. Culture, economics, and society. Each letter of pieces deals with one of these 6 themes. 6 letters in pieces, 6 themes of AP World. Officially, this is the wording of governance. A variety of internal and external factors contribute to state formation, expansion, decline. So why did states form, grow, and then lose power? Governments maintain order through a variety of administrative institutions, policies, and procedures. And then governments obtain, retain, and exercise power in order, or I should say in different ways and for different purposes. So we've got why do states form, expand, and decline? How is order maintained and how is power exercised? Each of the learning topics, recall, is subdivided into different historical developments, different learning objectives. Each objective is going to have a focal theme, something that you should really focus on. Now, overall, the concept of empires and states, that's across the board. Era 1, 2, and then Era 4 is when it's revisited again. So you have the early states like Song China, Dar al-Islam, etc. Era 2, you have the big land-based empires and then the maritime empires. And then finally, states that are before World War I and between the wars. Rebellion and revolt are also common themes of governance. And this comes up in every single era except Era 1. So like Atlantic revolutions, Russian and Mexican revolutions, decolonization are all rebellion and revolt. Specific conflict. We're looking at Era 2 with different political and religious rivalries. And then with Era 4, global conflict is the name of Unit 7. Cold War is part of the name of Unit 8, so definitely there's some conflict involved there. Diplomacy. How do different areas interact with one another? And this only comes up a couple of times, namely expansion in Africa for Unit 6, independence with negotiation with decolonization, and then the United Nations. And finally, we have political systems. This is going to come up in every single era we study, whether it's the bureaucracy or the Mongol Khanates in Era 1, joint stock companies in Era 2, democracy and liberalism within that third era, and then as we get to Era 4, fascism, totalitarianism, communism. So all of these different units will specifically address governance within the varied learning objectives. Technology and innovation. So human adaptation and innovation have resulted in increased efficiency, comfort, and security. And technological advances have shaped human development and interactions with both intended and unintended consequences. Now, when it comes to this particular theme, it's a little more sparse than governance throughout the course. And we have four main categories we're looking at. All right, we have intellectual technology. Unit 1, it's more ideas that were transferred within Dar al-Islam. And in our fourth era, it's more of the modern developments. Then it's transportation. So Era 1, Unit 2, it's about technologies that made trade easier. Era 2, it's about how ship designs for transoceanic travel will make that easier. And then finally, globalization. We're looking at air travel, shipping lanes. Industrial technology. Era 3, essentially, it's most of the unit because it's Industrial Revolution. But then in Era 4, we've got total war and weapons of modern war and new energy technologies. Now, the fourth theme is only really present in that last unit, and that's medical technologies like antibiotics and vaccines, additional devices and additional advancements that have been made in modern medicine. So again, with technology, not as many, but still integral. It's the same with humans and the environment. So that's that first E in pieces. The environment shapes human societies, and as populations grow and change, these populations, in turn, shape their environments. Throughout the entire course, we can really take humans and the environment and boil it down to three topics. We have different elements and natural resources, like the monsoon winds in Era 1, like developing heavy industry and that global economy for Era 3. But then with our final era, globalization, we're looking explicitly at how humans affect the environment. Disease is a biggie, with the bubonic plague in Era 1, with malaria, smallpox, and measles as a part of the Columbian Exchange in Era 2. And then in the final era, Era 4, diseases associated with poverty and longevity and epidemic diseases. And then finally, migrations really are its own separate category. Humans migrating and affecting the environment. Explicitly, the Columbian Exchange in that second era. And then when we look at Era 3, what influences these varied migrations? So right now we have the P, the I, and the E. The C, cultural developments and interactions. Ideas, beliefs, and religions illustrate how groups in society view themselves, and the interactions of societies and their beliefs will have political, social, and cultural implications. So where do we see CDI? Where do we see that C throughout the course? Well, we see it in religion when it's explicitly mentioned in the historical developments. Era 1, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, and Christianity are all explicitly mentioned in that first unit. Era 2, we get into the idea of religious conflict and syncretism, where different ideas fuse together, like Islam and Hinduism fusing to form Sikhism. And then in Unit 6, which is Era 3, the forcible spread of Christianity. Intellectual transfers will occur as part of culture. So these are the Mongol transfers in Unit 1 because they protected, or I should say Unit 2, Era 1, because they protected trade routes. Different reform unit movements within Unit 5 under the Enlightenment and then revolutions. And then finally globalized popular culture in that final unit. Then we have different cultural ideologies, like social Darwinism in Unit 6, and then different Cold War ideologies in Unit 8, along with resistance to globalization and power structures in that final unit. E. All right, this is that second E, economic systems. As societies develop, they affect and are affected by the ways that they produce, exchange, and consume goods and services. Economic systems is actually pretty prevalent throughout each of the different learning objectives. It's almost on par with politics or governance. We have labor systems and workers, like peasant and artisanal labor in Era 1, coercive labor systems, and there's that peasant and artisanal labor again, Era 2, and then coerced and semi-coerced labor. So it's basically peasant and artisanal labor and coercive labor that really shows up at different points throughout the course. We have trade routes and systems. In Era 1, Unit 2 is called Networks of Exchange. So basically all of Unit 2. And then in Era 2, which is Unit 4, we have the triangular trade and different global networks. Technological innovations are connected to economics systems. So Era 1, when we see Units 1 and 2, items that are designed to further develop trade. Specific exchanges occur, like the maritime networks and Atlantic trading in Unit 4. And then Unit 5, new transnational businesses. State-sponsored economics appears in Era 4, like responses to the Great Depression, but then Russia's 5-year plans and China's Great Leap Forward. And then finally, free market economics, where you develop different ideas and the European and American advantage that came about as a result of different industrialization and imperialist policies. And then use of different free market policies worldwide will show up in that final unit. So we have peace, and then the S, pieces, social interactions and organization, process by which societies group their members, and the norms that govern the interactions between these groups and between individuals influence political, economic, and cultural institutions and organizations. Throughout the course, we have 3 main topics that the SIO can be categorized as. We have different social systems and class systems, like serfdom in Era 1, different social hierarchies in Era 2, new classes based on industrialization, like the middle class and the working class in Era 3, and then challenges to the old order of things in Era 4. So social and class systems are seen throughout the entire course, all 4 eras. Gender roles show up as part of social interactions and organization. We have gender restructuring based on the slave trade. We have the push for women's rights and new roles for women that are based on industrialization and migration. And then new educational and political opportunities for women that'll come about during this era of globalization. And finally, social upheaval. This is mainly Era 4. Mass atrocities that we see, unfortunately, as part of global conflict, land and resource redistribution with Cold War and decolonization, and then reform movements and responses with globalization. So remember, the acronym we use for the 6 themes are pieces. Pieces. We're looking at politics, innovations, environment, culture, economics, and society. This helps us tie together all of the different materials and really see the big picture in AP World Modern.